Hi, this is Inez.
And this is Kathy.
And this is XX Will Travel, the podcast for independent women travelers. Today we are going to talk about travel resolutions for 2018. Specifically those of our listeners. They've sent their own travel resolutions so that we can help them out and see how they can achieve it.
Yes, and it's everything they want to do, all the travel goals they want to achieve in the next year.
Yeah. Shall we begin?
Let's dive right in.
Let's just dive right in. Happy New Year, everyone. I think it's safe to say that many of the travel questions or goals we got fall under the umbrella theme of budget.
Yes, always the eternal question.
My friend McManus, she goes by her last name.
Oh.
I know. I love it.
Me too. Me too.
She's one day going to be one of those famous one-name kind of people like Cher. But she sent, I would love tips on saving and budgeting for travel when you're a broke little baby. Because she just graduated from college, so, you know, she can call herself a broke little baby. Friend Britt Manning asks, how do you create a budget for travel? Once you decide where to go, how much money do you need? Tell me all about money and escaping, please. And Joelle Moonchak also said, aren't time and money always the big questions?
Yes, they are. And the big question for me is, why haven't you listened to our episodes in our How to Plan a Trip series, which cover both choosing a location and budgeting, both time and money?
Yeah, so that is probably our step number one as to how you can resolve this budget issue. Do download that episode and listen to it. Literally, I think called budgeting, because we give you like all our time-honored tips and strategies for that.
Including how to budget time and money when you're working full-time.
Yeah. But on the other hand, because we're feeling extra generous, and it is the giving season, we do have a couple of other extra little tidbits that we may perhaps not have covered the first time around.
We're older and wiser.
We are. And we're always accumulating knowledge. One is savings, right? And I understand that maybe for people with salaries, it can be quote-unquote easy to save in the sense that you can set aside money, you have a set amount of money that you get each month, which makes it easier to plan in terms of a budget and in terms of seeing where you can cut. But if you are a person who is like very, very underemployed and therefore has a very limited salary, or happen to freelance, or just has like 3 different random jobs and don't really know how much you have going in, I think saving apps might be what you should use to figure out saving. So there's 2 that I recommend. One is Digit. Basically what Digit does is it makes small withdrawals based on your balance of your checking account and then puts it into a separate saving account. So if you have more money at any given time in your checking account, it might take away like $2 to put into savings. But if you have really limited funds, then it might just put in a few cents into the savings account. And it will do this automatically for you via some complicated algorithm so that it makes sure that you're not all of a sudden depleted from all your checking account money, but you are still saving. Transferring money back to your checking account for when you want to use it is pretty easy. You can also deposit more if need be. You're like, hey, I made bank today. I don't want to just deposit $2 into my savings account. I want to deposit $5. You can do that. And I've heard from many people, especially freelancers friends who use it, that they barely notice the money that's automatically deducted. That's how small it is. And yet when they look into the app, all of a sudden they have enough money for like a plane ticket. Mm-hmm. So that is my big one. If you're like, that is too much control to give to an app, I want something that is maybe more holistic, I really recommend Mint because all it does is track your spending. You basically link all your banking accounts into Mint, and when you log into the app, you have like a snapshot of every single banking account, how much money you have, and it lists all your transactions. It also creates really nifty pie charts that lets you show where your money is going. So at least that way you know, hey, I'm spending way too much on restaurants, I'm spending way too much on clothes, and you can start figuring out where to cut back.
It is very eye-opening to see those pie charts, because you really, like coffee, so many people spend so much money on coffee and don't even realize it because it just becomes a habit. When I was a young lass and all my friends were getting married, did basically analog. What was the first app you read?
Digit?
Analog Digit, where I set up a fund that took a little money out of my paycheck. I did a separate checking account every month. so that I could pay to go to these weddings and buy clothes and buy a present and yada, 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 yada. And as my friends have all paired off now, it turned into my travel account. And I've been doing it for so long that I don't even notice it. And it doesn't have to be like $100 a month. It can be $5, it can be 10, 20, just something, your little travel nest egg.
Yeah. And I think, and it's something we mentioned in the budget episode, but what I really want to emphasize is that if you don't make it a priority, you're never going to save for this.
Yeah.
So if you know that you have to automate it, like automate a system in order to save, do that. If you need a budget in order to save, do that. And if you just have to make sacrifices, that's the unfortunate part.
Right. But it's worth it.
It is.
Yeah. If you, that's a big question we get a lot is how can we afford to travel? And the fact is you make it a priority.
You don't really spend money on other things.
Right.
And that's cool if you don't want to, but that's it.
We don't judge. It's your money.
Yeah.
Like you asked us.
I think another way to save money can be interesting ways to save on accommodation. Sometimes people maybe have the money for the actual plane ticket, but their worry is, well, what do I do once? Not what do I do once I'm there, but where do I stay? I don't have money for that.
So our friend Char Stover, who also was interviewed for one of our episodes in season 2, she is a big fan of couch surfing. And if you follow her on Instagram or on Facebook, she just has delightful experiences.
Yeah.
Couch surfing with these people. She recently went all over Brazil and had awesome hosts who took her to do local stuff, who cooked with her. And it looked like fun. I've never couch surfed, but I'm sure Char would heartily endorse couch surfing. And it is risky. You always take a risk when you travel. And I'm sure that there are, like in everything, there are negative stories to balance the positive stories. But Char seems to have it down.
Yeah, and she's written a lot about it on her blog, The Vulnerable Traveler. One thing that actually, Kathy, you like to do is travel to places where you know people so you can stay with them.
Yes, that is my vacation go-to, is to travel where I can stay for free on a couch. If you don't mind a couch, if you don't mind sharing spaces with people, and if your host is cool with it, I'm the person that always visits. That is my reputation among my friends, is that I will always visit you. So that is a great way. And then you get the local perspective, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And 2 other options that I've never tried, but I kind of wish I had, are pet sitting and house sitting. And they do tend to be better for long-term vacations, especially house sitting. Basically, if someone's away for a month, you get to take care of their home. But there are specific websites that you can look for these things. Pet sitting is becoming a more popular option. And I've never tried it. I don't have a ton of tips, but from what I've skimmed over on the Googles, the big thing that people suggest is just make sure it's in a location that you really want to be in, because sometimes these houses are in some suburban hellhole, and then you never get the vacation you wanted. But that's it. Yeah.
If you don't mind, if it says Paris, check if it's really in Paris.
Right.
And if it's not in Paris, check if the public transportation situation, or if you'll have car access, or any city. I don't know why Paris springs to mind.
It's a popular destination.
So, Britt Manning not only submitted a question about budget, but she also wants to take the Great American Road Trip. And we also have an episode with the venerable Meryl Williams, who has crossed the country several times on what makes a good road trip. She wants budget tips. So let's start with the budget tips and then some suggested destinations. More friends equals more fun and less money.
That was my tip too.
Yeah. So the more people you not only have company and people to hang out with, but you also can split the costs. Number 2, stop at grocery stores for snacks. They're healthier, they're less money, and you get to interact with the locals and get some local specialties that maybe would not be available at McDonald's. Book some things in advance, especially if you're going to do things like national parks, like Yellowstone, because those cabins in the park book up a year in advance. So, if you're just rolling into Minneapolis, you can pretty much go into town and be guaranteed someplace to stay. But for special occasions, like if you really want to drive the Pacific Coast Highway and stay in a treehouse, that treehouse is going to be booked well in advance. So integrate some planning. I would recommend, as a nervous driver, a AAA membership, because you, especially as a woman, I know Inez and I don't like to talk about safety all the time, but I was recently in Minnesota yesterday with my mom, and we got a flat tire, and it was sub-0 degree weather, and neither of us knows how to change a tire. So that was kind of scary, and it did end up being resolved in a good manner. AAA. And know that if you do call AAA, they might have a long wait time, say about 4 hours, as they said to us at first. So be prepared to wait, or if you can, try to get off at an exit where there's stuff to do until you are rescued by your AAA or whatever, car maintenance place.
Yeah, I haven't taken too many road trips because I don't know how to drive. I believe I've mentioned this also in the road trip episode with Meryl. But the few that I have, kind of with Kathy, more people involves less cost, and it involves also, being able to get some motel room for a night. Splitting it between 4 or 5 people ends up being like nothing.
Right.
Not that much. Also, I thought it might be a great chance to actually hit up all the people you do know between your point of origin and your destination. I had some friends who did a trip up and down the East Coast, and basically everyone had an aunt, a cousin, or a friend that lived somewhere up and down the East Coast, and that's how they mapped out their route. So that also helped cost down. And maybe this is me being naive, but perhaps camping? Can camping bring costs down?
Yeah, camping can definitely bring costs down.
And if so, we recommend the Kim Nelson episode on camping. We've covered a lot of ground, people.
We really have. You should have been paying attention. Britt, like us, is based in Chicago. So these are some of the good road trip opportunities from Chicago. Britt wants to see an ocean. I usually don't have that much time. So here's some good ones. Nashville is 7 hours away from Chicago. If you drive a little further, like 3 or 4 hours further, you can go to Gatlinburg and the Smoky Mountains. You can go to the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is gorgeous, and Asheville, North Carolina, which is amazing. Minneapolis is 6 hours from Chicago. St. Louis, 4 hours from Chicago. If you head up north to Wisconsin, just 3 hours, you can go to Spring Green, Wisconsin, which is the home of Taliesin, a famous Frank Lloyd Wright house. Frank Lloyd Wright was an asshole. We can all agree on that fact. But he did some amazing architecture, and Taliesin looks like Switzerland. And you can stop at House on the Rock, which is a crazy, crazy experience. Room full of dolls, merry-go-rounds, Santa Clauses. It's nuts. You just have to see it to believe it. Memphis is 7.5 hours away if you want to go say hello to Elvis. Louisville, Kentucky, where Inez and I went and did an episode about.
We did, and it was also a road trip.
Yeah, 5 hours away. Some other further road trips that are further afoot are the Pacific Coast Highway. It's gorgeous. If you want an ocean, drive from San Francisco to LA or vice versa. Route 66 also starts in Chicago and goes all the way to LA. If you go to the Art Institute of Chicago, you can see the sign where Route 66 officially starts. Fly into Vegas and go to the Grand Canyon or Bryce Canyon or Zion or Antelope Valley. Just, get out of Vegas as quickly as possible because it's Vegas. Internationally, you can do the Iceland Ring Road, which is super popular. You can drive to Toronto and hit up Niagara Falls. There's the Great Ocean Road in Australia. And there's also the Alaska Highway, which is from British Columbia to Delta Junction, Alaska. And it's the 50th anniversary in 2017. So they're doing all sorts of little celebrations of that route.
Wow.
I love road trips. Oh, one more tip. If you're keeping your road trips local, you can focus on weird stuff like House on the Rock. Or focus on one thing and look for the little hidden gems. Like when I went on my Laura Ingalls Wilder road trip, also an episode. We added in Jefferson City because I love state capitals because I'm a nerd. And then we stumbled upon the Winston Churchill Museum in Fulton, Missouri, which we just saw a sign on the side of the road, and we were like, that possibly can't be Winston Churchill. But it was, and it's housed in a 17th century church that was shipped over from England and was designed by Christopher Wren, who is the architect who redesigned London after the London Fire. So, that is my tip. Start on one thing, and other crazy things will follow.
Yeah. It almost made me want to learn how to drive, Kathy, that whole list. Another somewhat budget-related question we got was also from our friend Shar, who we mentioned. And her question was, a lot of people are interested in how to get jobs working in hostels and workaways. And she wanted to know, how do people go about doing that? It is a good way of limiting the costs of your travel, and I have some thoughts on this because I actually did research on the topic when I thought I was going to take off in 2017 and escape Chicago because I was just so bored with my life here. So this is what I found back in those days. First off, when it comes to working in hostels, I've actually done this before. I did it in Cusco back when I was like 24 or 25. Getting a job at a hostel is super easy unless things have dramatically changed. You basically go to the receptionist/owner, say, hey, I kind of want to stay here for a while. Do you guys do a work exchange where if I pick up a couple of shifts, you let me stay for free? And for the most part, they'll say yes. Like, this is a very normal hostel type situation. It works better for long-term travel because you do have to work, so it's not like you're gonna be doing day trips all the time because you have to keep those shifts in exchange for the room and board you get. But it is a really easy way to get free accommodation. And in certain cases like me, I had some bartending shifts, so every once in a while I would get tips. In terms of workaways, go to workaway.info, which is the main Workaway website, and you're like, what the hell is even a workaway? Basically, it is the idea of fair exchange, volunteering, or working, and work opportunities between travelers and families, individuals, or organizations that are looking for help. So on this website, you can basically filter out where you're going, what kind of skill you have or what kind of experience you want, and then it gives you a list of all the opportunities there. Some opportunities are, for example, help me with my garden in my farm in Cajamarca. This is one I saw. If you help this woman with her garden there, in exchange, you get to stay in a room for free. And these are kind of the opportunities you get. So my big tip here is to really research. See if it's the kind of work you want to do, see if it's the kind of place you want to stay, and exactly what you get in return. And as always, try to see if some of these posters have good reviews from other travelers with regards to safety concerns and things like that. And I think other options besides the hostel and workaway situations that people sometimes forget, overlook, or don't even know exist are, one, teaching English abroad, which is something that Kathy did. And also working holiday visas that certain countries, I believe mostly Commonwealth ones, offer young people. That's the thing, though. It tends to have an age limit. But.
Right. I think 30, it's 30 or younger for Canada, Australia, and England, and then 35 or younger for New Zealand, and you have to prove you have a skill.
Yeah.
There's also woofing. So,
yes,
if you would like to pick some fruit, or maybe other produce, there's also woofing, which is a network of, like farms?
Yeah.
That need seasonal help, and often you work in exchange for room and board. So, I don't know if that's as popular as it used to be, though.
I don't know. I've heard of people doing the hostel thing for sure, workaways. Pretty much every option I've mentioned, I have at least one friend who has done it, right. But I've never met someone who's done woofing.
Right. I've heard of it. It's mythical.
Yeah. It's the urban legend in travel.
Right.
And another thing I forgot to mention, there is certain thing as like seasonal work in resorts, even if it's winter or summer. For example, ski resorts also always need like a ton of workers during the ski season. So you can also look into those opportunities.
And if you are into cruising, sometimes cruise ships, I know in Juneau, Alaska, when I was there, sadly, a lot of the jewelry stores were were owned by the cruise companies. And you can differentiate between them because usually the ones that are owned by sole proprietors will have a sticker or some sort of designation that says, I am not owned by Carnival Cruises. But these people, like, they were working in Alaska in the jewelry stores for the summer, and then in the winter they would go work in the Caribbean.
So that's an option too. Mm-hmm. I know boats sometimes need people, like the personal charter boats, if you have that skill.
Right. A lot of our friends are second city performers who have gone on cruise ships and been the cruise entertainers. So if you're funny, there are options aplenty.
Yeah, I was going to say, just get creative. If your real goal is to travel for extended periods of time, just think of every single random option that you can think of.
Oh, nannying.
Yeah. Au pairs.
Quite popular. I know a couple people who nanny in Germany and are going to get their master's degree because your master's education is free in Germany.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, for sure. So I think we've covered a lot of the holes in our budget episode, if you will, or added to it, I should say. Any last thoughts on budget, Kathy?
Have one.
I agree. I think that's a good ending note. So now let's turn to the other big question, which is time. And this question comes from our friend Laura Holt. She asks, how do you decide where to go when you have limited vacation days and your partner wants to go to the opposite continent? I will leave the second half of that question for now. But we can talk about what to do with limited vacation days. I've actually become really good at this because I've always had paltry limited vacation days in my office job. Tip number 1, check to see if you have personal days or floating holidays. These are separate from vacation days, but just as useful. For example, in my current job, I have 15 days of vacation, but I also have 3 personal days. No one needs to know that I'm using them for vacation. In fact, it's encouraged to do so.
And use your personal days first, because if you leave your job, you may get paid for your unused vacation days, but you will not be compensated for your unused personal days.
Yes, excellent point. 2, if you're traveling somewhere, try to schedule it so that you leave on a Friday or early Saturday and you come back on the following Sunday, meaning that you use both weekends on this trip. That gives you 4 whole extra days of being in a destination. Don't do like a Wednesday to Wednesday thing or some other random schedule like that. 3, this is my personal favorite. Just add the trip you are going to take to a long weekend or to a holiday. This is especially good for trips abroad. So what I've sometimes done is taken my vacation days right near Thanksgiving weekend. So I might use like 4 of my vacation days on the days prior, the days after, but then I have that Thursday and Friday to myself.
I enjoy sandwiching around vacations. Around vacations, like taking the Monday before Thanksgiving and coming back on the Monday, because then you can often get cheaper flights because you are flying at off-peak times.
Yes, exactly. And I will say, though, I think this is especially good for trips abroad. Like if you try to travel within the U.S. in Thanksgiving, everything is a mess. It's super expensive, etc. But if you leave that whole chaos behind and go somewhere where Thanksgiving is not observed, aka the rest of the world, it kind of comes out pretty good for you. Number 4, try to book the earliest flight out to your destination and then get the latest one back. This is only if you have limited, boundless amounts of energy and don't care being super tired at work the next day, but it helps.
And it will make your flights cheaper.
It will. Budget and time, all intertwined together. 5, if you travel for business, add a few days at the beginning or at the end of your trip, and it ends up being a little holiday, little vacation.
I recommend adding them before, because if I go on a business trip and I'm talking to people for a week, for 8 hours a day, I'm usually exhausted at the end. And unless I can lay by a pool, then I guess that would be a good way to spend your time afterwards, but I'm usually perkier before.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. Good to know when you're perky. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My last tip is don't be afraid to ask for short-term leaves of absence if you want to go somewhere for a long time. And the reason I'm mentioning this is, 1, it sounds terrifying, but I already know of 2 people who have tried it and have been successful. Both times they were totally willing to be fired or to quit if these leaves of absence were not observed. In both cases, they also told their employer, by the way, you might be granting me this permission, but I might not want to come back. And in both times, their employers were like, it's cool. I don't even know what the rationale for the employer is, other than it's probably cheaper to try to retain someone you already have, and it's a known person as opposed to trying to find a new person to fill that job permanently. But it's worth a try.
It is. And if you don't want to do that for a long-term trip, see if you can take like a couple of unpaid days. Because if you're not super busy, they will be more than happy not to pay you to work. Or pretend to work.
Yeah. Do you have any more tips or add-ons for that?
No. Oh, the second part. Part 2.
Oh, part 2. I have thoughts on this. Do you have thoughts on this?
I do have thoughts on this.
Why don't you start?
You seem to feel very strongly. You go ahead.
No, I don't know if I feel strongly, but I guess in my mind it's like, yes, we want experience. When we like someone, when we have a partner, we want to share great experiences with them. And sometimes it's important for that person or for you to share those experiences. On the other hand, I've never been with someone where I've allowed that to limit me. Like, if they couldn't take the time off, then I would do it anyway, and vice versa. Like, there's been a lot of times when, for example, my ex had travel opportunities that I was not able to go on, and I just kind of said, like, cool, send me pics. I mean, there's one thing, if it's really important, I say talk about it, compromise, see what destinations you both want to go to, and choose that as your, like, shared travel destination. I think the only, like, dick move would be, let's say your partner really wants to go to Paris with you and you specifically choose that as a solo trip, you know?
That would be a dick move.
But other than that, I'm like, I don't know, you're both independent entities, like, go forth, be happy.
Or if you want to compromise, say for example this person wants to go to Asia.
Sure.
And you don't have the time or the money to go to Asia. Why don't you do a stopover in the middle somewhere? Stop in LA or stop in Hawaii, which is much closer than, say, China.
Right.
That would be a good compromise. And then you go back home and your partner goes on and does his or her own thing.
Yeah. I'm hoping I don't come off as insensitive because I understand that not everyone is like this. Some people just really want to do things together with the other person, but if that is the case, if you're that type of person, then I almost want to be like, well, then you're just gonna have to deal with it. Like, you're just gonna have to deal with the fact that there's certain places you won't get to go, that you will be beholden to what you both can compromise on, and that's okay too, but that's the sacrifice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm a terrible, terrible human being. I don't know. I'm still big into, like, traveling on your own, if it makes sense, even if you're partnered, married, have kids, etc. It's just, for me, it's like a non-issue, I guess, is my point.
All right.
Next. Moving on. Destinations. Okay, so both Evan Hanover and Christy Brendel, who was our lovely guest on the mindfulness episode, are going to Argentina, and they want recommendations.
I will give my experience in Argentina. Oh, and we also have an episode on Argentina. With the lovely Jennifer Poe.
Yes.
Anyway, so I went to Argentina and I spent a week in Buenos Aires and I never ran out of things to do. I think I left the city for one day to go to an estancia, to go to a ranch and do some horseback riding. But otherwise, I was super busy and had a lot of fun. And I went by myself, so I met people and hung out with them and did all the stereotypical things like eating steak and dancing the tango. So if you're worried about where you should spend your time and you have a limited amount of time, rest assured, Buenos Aires will provide you with endless stimulation for at least a week, if not longer.
So, as many of you know, I actually spent 3 years in Buenos Aires when I was a wee teen. Little Inez in her Daria emo-ness. That's when I lived in Buenos Aires. Which should make you think that I have a ton of recommendations for the city, but I kind of don't, in the sense that it was so long ago, and anything I say now will just be things that you can find in guidebooks. But I agree with Kathy that it's a city that kind of never sleeps. And you have a ton of museums, ton of galleries, lots of art, culture, sites, things to do, so you won't run out. Now, if you're thinking, okay, I know Buenos Aires is awesome, but I want to see other parts of the country. I want to know if there's anything else I need to visit before leaving Argentina. I do have recommendations. If you're really, really into wine and vineyards and feel like traveling to Napa in South America, go to Mendoza, which is Argentina's prime wine region. Lots of vineyards you can visit there. I've heard the city is lovely and it has a great food scene.
How far is that from Buenos Aires?
It's far. Like, you will need an airplane far.
Because Argentina is a very long country.
Yeah, it's huge. Here's the thing. Most cities in Argentina are connected by bus, so you could technically take a bus, but it will take you about 26 hours.
Right. So that's what makes it so, Argentina is it makes it hard to decide.
It does. Mm-hmm. It does, for sure. The other place that I recommend is the Iguazu Waterfalls, which is on the border of Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay. I did take a bus to get there. That was a nice, fun 18 hours of my life that I will never get back.
And if you want to not take a bus for 18 hours, you can actually take a little boat cruise to Uruguay.
Yes, you can do that. Montevideo, Uruguay is a very short boat ride away from Buenos Aires. I want to say it might be an hour and a half.
It's crazy close. And it's what is it, Punta del Este?
Punta del Este.
Yeah, that is also pretty close. And what's the colonial city?
Colonia.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you want to also do a 2-for-1 and just knock 2 countries off your list, Uruguay is so close and it's tiny, and you can probably add a couple of days there without it taking away from your Argentina vacation.
Yes.
Yay!
And also Patagonia.
Yes.
Lovely. I've never been there, but I really want to go.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing. I feel like most people, at least the most foreigners that I know who go to Argentina, are Buenos Aires and Patagonia.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 big hits. But I've never been to Patagonia. It looks beautiful. And I'm sure I would jump at the chance to go if I had it, but it's also freaking cold and I hate the cold, so I'm just putting it on the back burner.
And it is very far down.
Yeah.
Geographically, it's very far. What would that be? South?
Far south.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Super far south.
That's Patagonia at the end. That's Tierra del Fuego, and how do you say it? Ushuaia?
Ushuaia,
yeah. Which is the embarkation point for cruises to the Antarctic.
Yep, you're basically at the end of the world.
Yeah.
So, beautiful.
So, if you can go, but don't expect to do it in a week.
No. Alexandra Sarpoulos said, I'll think of real questions, as all I can think of is going to Harry Potter Land.
Which ended up being her real question.
It did. Own your truth, Alexandra. Kathy, have you ever been to Harry Potter Land?
I have never read any of the Harry Potter books.
That is not an answer, no.
I hope I get hate mail, because people are like, what? I've read so many books you don't understand, but I haven't read the Harry Potter books, and therefore I am literally insignificant. So no, I have no interest in going to Harry Potter Land.
Fair enough. I have been to Harry Potter Land. It is oads of fun. I will say, even for people who haven't read the books, because I took my parents there and they had no idea what was going on, but they had a fine time. 2 tips for it though. 1, most of the souvenirs you get there are absolute trash, with the exception of the uniforms, which I will sometimes wear when I have nothing else to wear for Halloween or costume parties. So they've become quite a really good investment. And 2, the line to get to the main attraction, which is the ride inside Hogwarts, is always crazy long. It will say it takes about 2 hours to get to the ride. Still totally worth it, and the line is made infinitely more tolerable because they entertain you as you go in. Just with different little props and subjects and holograms that pop up and so on.
Is there a fast pass for that?
I am too cheap to even look into fast pass options, so I don't know. So that's it for Harry Potter Land. Dave Stanford says, I want to take a cruise down the Mississippi River on a riverboat.
Ooh, yeah. A little Mark Twain action.
Yeah. Kathy, thoughts?
No.
Oh, I actually did some research on this because I thought, well, that sounds so damn delightful.
I just picture him in a cream-colored suit and a Panama hat.
Oh, you'd have to.
And that is enough for me.
And he will have to start like growing a full-on Mark Twain mustache and dyeing it before he can get on any of these boats.
That is a requirement, Dave.
So, turns out that cruises down the Mississippi do exist, because I wasn't sure. A few to look up. American Queen has a paddle wheeler.
Ooh, very Twainy.
Very Twainy. That will take you up and down the Mississippi. Viking River Cruises, which is that amazing cruise line that shows up before Downton Abbey on PBS.
Yes, and always like beautiful pictures of the Danube.
Yes.
And the Volga River.
So they're planning on launching some river cruises in the Mississippi River. But as of today, they haven't yet, although you can sign up to keep yourself up to date in this area. American Cruise Lines also seem to have 2 ships that go up and down. And then there is a very boutique-y cruise line called French America Line, which specializes in riverboat cruises up and down the Mississippi River, especially like in the southern part, like Mississippi, Louisiana. I don't even know my geography, but that's why it's called French America. Like, that's kind of their whole shtick. They had to stop it because they were working a lot on the hurricane relief efforts of Houston and Puerto Rico. So they're going to pick it back up again in summer 2018. And I have to say that at least their boats look magnificent. It's very like boutique-y. They have all these amazing side trips, very like French Louisiana type stuff.
Which is, I'm calling for 2018... boutique river cruises, are going to be the thing.
The trend?
Yeah.
So you can get on this quickly, Dave. The only thing I've noticed on all of these cruise lines, though, is that it's freaking expensive. Save up, because I don't know if there's really any way to do it for cheap.
Unless you volunteer to be a river hand.
Yeah. Like Mark Twain, did you do that? Yeah.
Jump on a steamboat, Dave. That's your cheapest option.
Amy Stovall just put New Zealand 2018.
Again, I've never been to New Zealand, but there is an episode.
There is.
From season 1, I think. One of our earlier episodes with our friend Rachel Grandy.
And that episode covers both Australia and New Zealand. I have been to New Zealand, but I was mentioning to Kathy how I think I did it wrong. These are the mistakes I feel I made. 1, I spent too little time there. I think it was a total of maybe 4 or 5 days. And I mostly stuck to Auckland, which is actually a pretty cool city with a great food scene, but you don't need more than 2 days there. And then went to Rotorua, which is maybe a couple of hours away from Auckland, mostly to do spas and thermal bath. And it's fine. I mean, I loved both places. There was a lot of fun. But the true beauty of New Zealand seems to be one on the South Island, and it seems to be more nature-focused than what I did. There's a ton of cities that I also skipped, like Wellington and Christchurch. I really truly believe that, 1, you shouldn't try to add New Zealand to another trip. Like we did Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, which was great, but I think New Zealand deserves like a good 1 to 2 weeks, and we didn't have the time for that. 2, I would say look more into the natural beauty of it. Because I missed out on all of that. And now I regret it.
Did you see penguins?
Oh, I did go see penguins, though. But not in New Zealand. That was in Australia. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yes, penguins. So that, but there's more like wine countries to visit. We just went. There's an island off Auckland. Believe it's called Cloud Bay Island. And it's fine. No, I mean, it's great. But they have a ton of vineyards there, and we spent a whole day there, and that was great. But there's also other wine countries in New Zealand that I wish I had seen.
And Christchurch should be all brand new right now because of the horrible earthquake that happened a few years ago. So that would also be interesting to see.
So that's it for New Zealand. Let us know what you do. Kylie Bray says, we have our first family Disney trip on a cruise ship. Yay! Also thinking about going to Guadalupe for spring break, but worried about safety with the kids.
Okay, so let's just say that everything on Disney Cruises is taken care of.
Right. And also another episode tie-in. We also have Traveling with Children with friend of the podcast Elizabeth Gomez, in case you want tips on how to travel with your kids, a refresher. I don't know.
We also have Disney for Haters.
We do!
With Erica Toy, a very passionate Disney fan who attempts to melt our icy Disney hearts. So I have some tips for Guadalupe. It looks like a lovely place. These are the main tips I picked up. Steer clear of fallen coconuts. don't go, right? Yeah. It was like, it must be a serious enough issue that they have to warn you. So don't hang out under coconut trees. Don't park your car under coconut trees. Yeah, stay clear of coconut trees. Palm trees, I believe, is their correct name. Number 2, there is a lot of catcalling in Guadalupe. And they say to travel in groups, of course, which we always advise, and to avoid certain areas after dark, which isn't very promising, but, you know, you're going to be having fun on the beach, and you're with kids, so you're probably not going to be partying it up. Number 3, Zika is present in Guadalupe. So that is also another issue. And on the animal scale, number 4, jellyfish, which I guess could be a problem with kids if they get stung by a jellyfish. If you see them, stay out of the water. Don't try to be friendly. Don't touch them. But otherwise, I know Guadalupe has a lot of resorts, and tourism is their number 1 industry, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. And I did get this little factoid. It's still considered one of the safest Caribbean destinations by the UN Office of Drugs and Crime. So even though there's things you need to watch out for, like falling coconuts, it doesn't seem to be particularly dangerous.
Right.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are our tips. Kids should be okay.
Yeah. Just make them tire themselves out on the beach.
Right.
It'll be fine. Friend of the podcast, Sarah from Obligatory Traveler, says that she's going to Florida in a few weeks to swim with manatees for my birthday. Amazing. Alaska in the summer. And Finger Lakes region in New York for T-Bex plus wine.
And T-Bex, for those of you who don't know, is a blogging conference.
So I have some thoughts on Finger Lakes, New York, but I know you've been to Alaska. Anything you want to share?
Well, it depends on how you're getting there. Once again, I always visit. My friend was doing an internship at an art museum in Juneau, so I went and spent a week with her, and it was beautiful. It was during peak cruise season, so it was kind of a weird dynamic, because if there were ships in port, the town was like crazy busy, and if there were not, it was dead, like eerily dead. It's a smaller town. You have to either fly to get there or cruise in because it's surrounded by water. It's the capital. And I know that some cruises have a land element where you cruise for a while and then you fly to Anchorage and go to Mount Denali and all those other crazy things. But I loved Alaska. I can't wait to go back. And that drive from British Columbia to Alaska via the Alaskan Highway looks amazing. I would love to do that too. So yeah, go while you can. The Mendenhall Glacier is disappearing, so maybe you should check it out while you still can. And I just found it to be really easy to get around, and the people are friendly, and you can eat all the fresh salmon you can and the king crab. So go eat some fish and buy some jewelry.
You know, if I ever take a cruise, I always think it's going to be an Alaska cruise. That's the one cruise that really draws to my eye. Well, that one and the Mississippi Riverboats one now.
Right? The Alaskan cruise is one place or one like mode of transportation where you get to see stuff you wouldn't see otherwise. Like you have to take a boat there. You can take, I took a day trip to see through the Tracy Fjord to see all the glaciers and see the glaciers calving and stuff like that. But that's not like going all the way up to territory that is, I don't want to say uncharted. It is charted. It's charted by cruise ships, but only accessible by boat. So, yes. Good luck to you, Sarah Meduski. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah. As for the Finger Lakes region in New York, I have recommendations of 3 wineries and vineyards from a certified sommelier. So here we go. One, it is Dr. Constantine Frank Wineries. The other one is Bloomer Creek Vineyard. And the last one is Herman J. Weimer Vineyards. Apparently Riesling is a really big thing in the Finger Lakes region, so that's kind of one that you want to go for. And there is now a burgeoning cheese scene, so you might want to investigate the cheese action going on there.
Finger Lakes!
So, Kathy, you went out with friends to dinner. One of them wanted to go where?
My friend Courtney wants to know about Montreal, which I feel like Inez planted all these questions because they're all places she's been and they'd be easy to talk about. So So anyway, yes, Montreal, where I've never been, but Inez has spent time there. And she's going with her husband, so she's just looking for cool tips and things to do. And things to eat. They love cocktails and good food.
All right, I have tips. But first, Kathy, we do have an episode tie-in to this question. Would you like to tell our listeners more?
You mean our Canada episode?
Yeah.
You mean the New York Times Destination of the Year last year? Which we predicted?
We did! So, for more Canada info, you can listen to both of those episodes. But in terms of Montreal, here are my go-to recommendations. 1, go in the summer. I live in Chicago. Fuck that noise. Excuse my French, but honestly, like the frigid winter we're getting now where everyone is miserable, that is Montreal from October until late April, mid-May. And not just like once every couple of days. I'm saying like every single freaking day. So just listen to me, go in the summer. 2, the Museum of Fine Arts has some really beautiful temporary exhibits. So make sure to take a look at their website and see if there are any that catch your eye. 3, outdoor markets are a freaking delight over there. Jean Talon and Atwater are the really big ones, and you can get some tasty produce from Quebec region, including real maple syrup, which is amazing.
Ooh, and lavender.
Did not know that.
Yes. Yeah, like lavender from Quebec, because the Women in Travel Summit is going to be in Quebec City this year. And as, you know, little giveaways, they gave us lavender soap at the conference last year.
They did.
In Milwaukee. Mm-hmm.
It's true. Oh, get yourself some Montreal-style bagels because they are far superior to the New York ones. Come at me. I don't care. I will die by this opinion. My favorites are from Saint Vatur, which I'm probably mispronouncing, but it is spelled Saint Viateur. And for really good bars and cocktail scenes, go to the Plateau and Montreal area. You can't go wrong there. And finally, one of my favorite Montreal activities was going to the Tam Tams on Sundays. What are Tam Tams, you ask? For some reason, it's just a congregation of like hippies, hipsters, nerds, and musicians that descend down on Montreal Park every Sunday to bang away at little bongo drums. Is that what you call them? They're just constantly there for hours and hours on end, partaking in the time-honored Canadian tradition of smoking a lot of weed and chilling. It's actually a really fun scene. So those are my recommendations.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Courtney.
I mean, don't do drugs, kids, but you know, that's what they're doing. That's all I'm saying. And finally, Joe L. Moonshock is planning on going to Turkey, and Kathy has a lot of updates about that.
I do. Turkey is beautiful, and the coast is gorgeous on the Black Sea, and Istanbul is a treasure. However, in October 20, this is about visas, about U.S. citizen tourist visas. Here's the timeline. October 2017, a U.S. consulate employee was arrested in Turkey for suspected ties to a Turkish cleric that Turkey blames for organizing an attempted coup in July. Maybe you heard about it. The U.S., in retaliation, suspended all non-immigrant visas for Turkish people, which includes tourist visas. Surprise, surprise! Turkey did the same thing to U.S. citizens and was not issuing tourist visas to them anyway, as well. Just days ago, on December 28th, the crisis was resolved. And it had been gradually, like, relations had been thawing, and some people were reporting that they got visas no problem, other people couldn't. And this is a big issue because Turkish Airlines has really cheap flights with 24-hour layovers in Turkey. A lot of them have long-ass layovers. And you couldn't leave the airport because as an American citizen. So they started thawing. First it was if you were a U.S. citizen, you could get a tourist visa, but only if you were coming from a country other than the U.S., which means if you're going from the U.S. to Istanbul to London, you could not get a Turkish tourist visa, but if on the way back, you could. So that was their little compromise. And then merely days ago, on December 28th, they resolved the crisis, and full visa service has resumed, and until further notice, as of today, which is December 30th, you should be able to get a tourist visa, no problem. But it's just it's such a volatile region. That is one thing I would recommend. And I know that when they stopped issuing the tourist visas, Turkish Airlines worked with them, and if you had bought your ticket by late October, they would still issue you a visa to come to Turkey, but after that, they stopped. So keep an eye on that, and enjoy Turkey. Eat everything.
And so the last one is actually a travel goal that you yourself, Kathy, shares. So this is my segue into our own travel goals. But your friend Cindy Weflin says Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
And that's somewhere you're thinking of going in 2018?
It is someplace I am going in 2018.
Tell us more.
So, this is my travel goal. No, sorry. I purchased this ticket recently, and I'm flying into Barcelona. I'm going to go meet up with some friends in the south of France, in Catalonia. And then I am working my way back up north and flying out of Amsterdam. So I have never been to Barcelona. I've never been to Amsterdam. I've never been to Perpignan, France. So, but you have been to Barcelona and Amsterdam.
I have, although I feel like it was a million years ago and definitely on a backpacker budget. But Barcelona I absolutely loved. I wish I had had the money to explore more of their food, but I didn't. But in any case, it's super artsy. Like La Sagrada Familia is a sight to behold. All the Gaudi architectures and museums, and it's just a fun city. You know, like it just, again, there's just nice party scene. People are out and about until the wee hours. And then Amsterdam, I also enjoyed. I remember going to the Van Gogh Museum, which was fun. And to the sex museum, which you don't need to do now that you're a grown-ass woman, Kathy. I feel like it's one of those things that you choose when you're like in your 20s because you think it's going to be like super fun and awesome. But for the most part, it's just a lot of pictographic materials of women having sex with goats, which really confused me. Mm-hmm. A couple of dildos here and there. I don't know. That's it.
Not worth it.
Not worth it. Yeah.
All right. So that's my plan, and my immediate plan is actually going into the Canadian cold to Toronto, where I'm going to visit the At Home with Monsters exhibit at the Museum of Art. I'm super excited. It's Guillermo del Toro. It's stopped in Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and Toronto, and after this, he's going to take his toys and go home to Mexico. Mm-hmm. So that runs till January 7th, and it's sculpture and painting and prints and costumes. There's 500 objects of stuff that's either been in Del Toro movies or that has inspired Del Toro movies. And then I'm going to the Toronto Zoo to see the giant pandas. They're only there until March 18th because they're going to move to the Calgary Zoo until 2023 as part of their agreement with Calgary and China. And I'm going dog sledding and snowshoeing 3 hours north of Toronto in Sunbridge. And it puzzles me that this is happening because my friend who suggested this and really wants to do it, she's Mexican American, which is why which is the reason she says that she hates the cold so much and is so sensitive to cold. But we're going dog sledding, and her rationale is it's recommended for kids 6 and up to adults. So if a 6-year-old can do it, she can too. And I say, you go, Adriana.
Just bundle up a lot.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Toronto is actually a little bit milder, and I say this in quotes, than Montreal. But if you're 3 hours north, and Sunbridge just seems like a cruel joke.
I know.
Like it's not going to be sunny and warm.
No, it's like, is there a bridge to the sun there?
Yeah.
But the town itself is really cold. I don't know.
Yeah, although dog sledding sounds awesome. I would just wear everything I have in that suitcase.
Well, I'm trying to prepare my friend. I said, I'm wearing long underwear. Maybe you should invest in some.
Yeah. So. Do you have any other travel plans for the rest of 2018, or are you just taking it month by month?
Well, I'm going to try to go someplace every month, I think. So I have January covered. I have March covered. So I'm just going to find cheap flights and see where to go. I actually had a lot of vacation time left over this year, so it made me sad. It didn't, because I was with my family.
Right.
Even though families make you sad sometimes. I just wondered why I hadn't used it.
I have my upcoming trip to Belize, which I won't stop going on and on about because, interestingly enough, 2017 was one of the few years where I didn't go to a new country. I went to Peru for the holidays, but other than that, all my travel was really domestic. It was kind of a year where I ended up having to buckling down and staying here. So now I'm itching to go. So my big travel plans is Belize in January, then wherever my dad happens to be in May, which we cannot talk about because it is state secret, and I'm not even joking. Like, we don't know, he doesn't know. It's all a mess right now. But it will be somewhere, so wherever that happens to be, that's where I'll be. And then I really have become inspired to go to the African continent by the end of the year, and I'm looking more and more into Tanzania because I simply happen to know a lot of people that have recently been there, and their photos are making me feel things. So I just kind of have it in my head that maybe that's where I start, when it comes to Africa.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I really loved my quirky Missouri road trip, so I have got Alabama on my brain, and it's because I'm reading a book about Mavis Staples, and they recorded a lot at Muscle Shoals, which is really not that far from Nashville. It's only 2 hours south of Nashville, and I have a friend who lives in Nashville who would probably be up for a trip like that. And I would love to go to Birmingham to see all the civil rights stuff and to eat a lot of delicious food. So that has really been tickling my fancy, as it were. So I also still have to see the Grand Canyon. Like, I have not seen the Grand Canyon. I am a horrible American. You're going to strip me of my American flag tattoo or something. I don't know. So I really want to see the Grand Canyon and maybe go out to Zion and Bryce Canyon and possibly do that in the winter when it's hellish in Chicago. So that is fun. And then the Calgary Stampede is on the table. What I have one of my best friends lives in Vancouver, and she says it's hella fun. So we kind of want to go see that. But tickets to Calgary are not cheap.
No.
They're not cheap. So we'll see how that turns out. But those are my other ones.
Yeah. I don't know if I've planned anything internally in the sense of like the US or even Canada or things like that. I figured those would be more spontaneous. But, I also do have limited funds and limited vacation time. So I think this might be the year where I invest in just fewer trips, but longer ones and more foreign ones. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm also going to Iowa.
Ooh, that is exotic and foreign to me.
It is.
Well, for what? What for?
For a wedding.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, when is that?
August.
Ah, all right. But, hey, I've heard great things. I know that sounds like a joke, but I actually have heard great things about Iowa.
Iowa City and Ames are supposed to be really cool towns. Really cool cities. So I'm looking forward to that, in addition to celebrating the love of my friends Hannah and Stefan.
Oh, congratulations. It seems like I might be going to San Francisco for work, and if that's the case, I might try to add on a couple of days because I haven't really explored the city, so that's about it. But I'm excited for it.
Hawaii is on the docket for my work, but that is all the way in October, so who knows?
Will we even be here?
Right? Will we be allowed to travel?
For real. Will Gilead be officially instituted?
Will I be going to Hawaii as a handmaid?
Right. I've decided I will definitely be one of the brothel ladies if that happens, because they have access to alcohol. That's how I justify it.
Either brothel or the uranium mines. Like, I don't see many other options for outspoken ladies.
Nope. On that happy note,
yay.
Anyways, we hope you reach all your 2018 travel goals. Keep sending them to us. Let us know what you're doing. If you like this episode and want to hear more, subscribe to us on iTunes or follow us on Podbean, Stitcher, and other places where you can find podcasts. Sign up for our newsletter. It has a new design that I'm really excited about, and you can do so at xxwilltravel.com/newsletter. And then where else can people find us?
Instagram at xxwilltravel, and if you have travel pictures and would like to be featured, use the hashtag xxwilltravel, and we will put your beautiful face or your beautiful landscape on our Instagram feed. We're also on Twitter at xxwilltravel, and in big news, we will be launching a Facebook group /community in January. So nothing's really going on with it now, but if you want to join, so you will be in the know when something is going on, find us.
Yes. Awesome. Until then, go forth and travel.